Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. You think we don't feel? You think we just walk around all tough, silent, keeping everything locked up like a vault? Oh, we feel. We feel big. The problem is we don't always know how to put it into words without feeling like we losing something. Maybe our pride, maybe our control, maybe just that image we've been holding on to since we were boys. You know, the funny thing about men is that most of the time, you're trying to figure out how we feel by listening for words that never come. You're sitting there waiting on some big confession, like we're going to just pour our heart out one night over dinner. But that's not how most men operate. We're not wired to lead with words when it comes to our feelings. For a lot of us, actions come first, words come later, if they ever come at all. And the sooner you understand that, the easier it gets to actually know where you stand with a man. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying men don't have feelings or that we don't care, or we care. Sometimes we care so much it scares us. But the way we were brought up, most of us were taught that real men don't just go around telling people everything they feel. We were taught to show it instead. So instead of saying, I love you, we'll do something like fix your car, take out your trash, make sure your phone is charged before you go out. Instead of saying, you mean a lot to me, we might show up when you need help moving, or make sure you eat when you're too busy to think about food. Those little things, that's our way of speaking. The problem is sometimes women are waiting for those words so badly that they completely miss what the man is doing. You're thinking, if he really felt something for me, he'd just tell me. But in his mind, he's thinking, if she can't see it in what I do, then my words won't mean much. You see the difference? For men, love often feels safer to act on than to talk about. Here's the tricky part. Because actions don't come with subtitles, you might be wondering if what you're seeing is just friendliness or something deeper. That's where you got to start paying attention to consistency. Any man can do something sweet once, but a man who consistently shows up, checks on you, supports you, looks out for you, that's not just friendliness. That's emotional investment. And it's usually his way of saying, I'm in this, even if his mouth isn't forming the words yet. You also got to understand that for a lot of men, saying how we feel isn't just about opening our mouth. It's about risking a lot of things we're not sure we can handle. What if we say it too soon and scare you away? What if you don't feel the same? What if we lose control of the situation? So instead, we do the safer thing. We show you. If you recognize and appreciate those actions, it builds trust. And trust is what eventually unlocks the words you've been waiting to hear. Think about it like this. When a man starts showing you pieces of himself, whether it's through acts of service, protection, or even just being present when he could be somewhere else, that's him talking in the only language he's fully comfortable with at the moment. If you dismiss it because you want the Hollywood-style speech right away, you might miss the fact that he's already been telling you, just not in the way you expect it. So what do? You meet him in that language first. You acknowledge those actions. You show appreciation. You let him know you see what he's doing and that it matters to you. That does something powerful to a man. It makes him feel safe enough to take the next step, the verbal one. Because once a man feels like his efforts are seen and valued, those walls start to come down. And behind those walls are the exact words you've been waiting to hear. A man who's serious about you is already telling you through what he does. You just have to learn how to listen with your eyes before you expect to hear it with your ears. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they want someone to open up is thinking they can force it. You can't make a man spill his heart just because you're ready to hear it. That's not how it works. If you want him to tell you how he really feels, you've got to create an environment where he feels like he actually can. And that environment has to be safe. I mean, emotionally safe, judgment-free, and real. See, most men walk around with a little guard dog in their head, barking anytime they think they might get judged or laughed at for being honest. We're trained to be careful with our feelings because we've seen what happens when we let them out in the wrong place. Maybe a man tried to open up once and someone threw it back in his face. Maybe he was told he was too sensitive or overreacting. So what does he do? He shuts it down, keeps it to himself. It's easier that way, or at least that's what he tells himself. That's why creating a safe space is so important. A man needs to know that when he's with you, he's not going to get criticized for what's going on inside his head. You can't say you want honesty and then react with anger or sarcasm the moment you get it. If he thinks telling you the truth will turn into a fight, you've already lost that battle. Sometimes safety isn't just about what you say, it's about your energy. If every time you talk, he feels like he's being interrogated, he's going to start keeping his answers short and sweet. But if he feels like he can be himself without worrying about saying the wrong thing, he'll start testing the waters with small truths. And those small truths eventually lead to the bigger ones you've been waiting for. Here's the thing, safety doesn't mean you agree with everything he says. It means you give him space to say it without fear. You can disagree, you can challenge his ideas, but you do it in a way that keeps the door open instead of slamming it shut. Men notice that. We notice when someone listens to understand instead of listening to argue. That's when we start thinking, okay, maybe I can actually say what's on my mind here. And it's not just about listening, it's about your reactions. Let's say he tells you something vulnerable, maybe a fear he has or a mistake he made. If your first reaction is to laugh at him or make him feel small, you just told him without saying a word, don't do that again. But if your reaction is to acknowledge his honesty, to thank him for trusting you with it, that does the opposite. That tells him you're safe here, you can be real with me. Creating that kind of space takes patience. You can't expect him to go from closed off to completely open overnight. It's like coaxing a turtle out of his shell. You can't bang on it and yell, come out. You've got to wait, be gentle, and let him decide when it feels right. The more he sees that you're not going to use his feelings against him, the more he'll test the waters. And each time he does, he'll get more comfortable. Here's another piece most people miss. Safety isn't just about keeping things calm in the moment. It's about what happens after. If a man shares something with you in private, don't go telling your friends, your mom, or posting some cryptic message online. That kills trust faster than anything. He needs to know that what he says to you stays with you, unless he says otherwise. That's when he starts to see you as someone he can go to with anything. When a man feels safe, he's more likely to be honest, even about the stuff that scares him. And when he's not worried about judgment, those walls he's been building start to crumble. That's when you get to see the real person. Not just the version he shows the world, but the one he keeps hidden. And once you've seen that, you'll realize that sometimes The most powerful thing you can do isn't to demand the truth, it's to create the kind of space where the truth can walk right in. Most people think listening is just sitting there while the other person talks, but real listening, that's a whole different ball game. You can be in the same room with somebody, nodding your head, pretending to hear them, and still miss the entire message. Men know the difference between somebody who's just hearing words and somebody who's actually locked in, paying attention. And when a man feels like you genuinely listening to him, that's when he starts opening up in ways you didn't think he would. Here's the truth. We live in a world full of distractions. Phones buzzing, TVs on, people scrolling through social media while you're trying to have a conversation. That's why active listening stands out so much. It's rare these days. When a man's talking to you and you put the phone down, look him in the eye and give him your full attention, you're telling him without words, you matter. What you're saying matter. And for a man, that's huge. Active listening isn't just about being quiet while he talks. It's about showing him you're actually processing what he's saying. That means asking questions, repeating things back to make sure you understand, and reacting in a way that shows you're engaged. If he tells you about his day, don't just say, and move on. Dig a little deeper. Wait, you said your boss called you in for a meeting. How did that go? That's genuine curiosity. That's showing him you care enough to want the details. And let me tell you something, men notice when you're curious about their world. We notice when you remember little things we said a week ago and bring them back up. We notice when you care about the small details, not just the big picture. It makes us feel like we're not just talking to fill space, we're talking to someone who actually values our perspective. See, a lot of men grew up in situations where they weren't listened to much. Maybe they had parents who brushed them off, teachers who didn't have time, or relationships where every conversation turned into a competition for who could talk the most. So when a man meets someone who actually listens, it's refreshing, it's disarming. It makes him think, maybe I can actually be myself here. Now, here's the catch. You can't fake it. Men can feel fake listening a mile away. If you're just waiting for him to stop talking so you can start, he's going to notice. If you're nodding, but your mind is somewhere else, he's going to feel that. And once he feels like you're not really interested, he's going to stop sharing. That's why genuine curiosity is so important. You're not just listening to respond, you're listening to understand. And when you combine active listening with genuine curiosity, you're basically telling him, your thoughts are worth my time. And for a lot of men, that's not something they hear every day. That feeling can make them more comfortable opening up about deeper topics, not just the surface level stuff like work and sports, but what's actually going on inside. Think about it this way. If every time you talk to someone, they're distracted, rushed, or dismissive, you're not going to give them the good stuff. You'll stick to the basics and keep the rest to yourself. But if you have someone who's leaning in, asking questions, remembering what you said last time, you'll find yourself saying more than you planned. That's what happens to men when you give them real attention. Sometimes the reason a man hasn't told you how he feels isn't because he doesn't know, it's because he's not sure you want to hear it. But when you show him through your actions that you're listening, that you're genuinely curious about his thoughts and feelings, you take away that doubt. You make it clear that you're not just there for the highlights, you're there for the whole story. And let me tell you, when a man feels like his words land somewhere safe, somewhere they're respected, he starts talking differently. He'll go from giving you short, guarded answers to opening up about things he's never told anyone. All because you took the time to not just hear him, but to really listen. One of the hardest things for people to understand is that when it comes to emotions, men move at their own pace. You can't rush a man into opening up the way you want when you want. If you try, you might get him to say something in the moment, but it won't be real. It'll be something he says just to get you off his back. And that's not what you after. The truth comes out best when a man's ready. And part of the magic is knowing how to respect that timing while still giving him a little nudge in the right direction. See, men have this thing where we like to be in control of our own story. We don't like feeling pushed or cornered. If we feel like you're prying into a part of us we're not ready to share, our natural instinct is to shut it down. That's not because we don't want to tell you, it's because we don't want to feel like we're being forced. When something feels forced, it stops feeling genuine. Now, respecting his timing doesn't mean you sit around forever just hoping one day he wakes up ready to talk. No, you can give him a gentle prompt. The key word here is gentle. You're not asking in a way that puts him on the defensive. You're asking in a way that invites him to share. Instead of, why don't you ever tell me how you feel? You might say, I really like to know what you think about this, or I'm curious how you see it. That doesn't sound like an interrogation. It sounds like an open door. And let me tell you, an open door is way more effective than a battering ram. You kick that door down with pressure and accusations, he's going to rebuild that thing with a lock, a chain, and an alarm system. But you leave it open, keep the energy calm, and he'll eventually walk through it. Sometimes it's also about catching the right moment. You can't expect deep conversations when he's stressed, distracted, or in the middle of something important to him. Timing is everything. A quiet drive, a relaxed evening, a shared activity where you're both comfortable. Those are the moments when he's most likely to let his guard down. Men often talk more when there's less pressure to make eye contact, like during a walk or while working on something together. It feels less like a formal interview and more like a natural exchange. And when he does give you something, even if it's small, you've got to treat it like gold. That's how you get more. If his timing gives you a little piece of the puzzle, you don't push for the whole picture right then. You appreciate the piece, let it sit, and trust that more will come. Pushing too hard after he's already opened up a little can make him regret saying anything. Respecting his timing is also about reading the signs. If he's pulling back, getting short with his answers, or looking uncomfortable, that's not the time to keep digging. That's when you step back, let him breathe, and show him you're not going anywhere. That patience is powerful. It tells him you're not here to force him. You're here to understand him when he's ready. And here's the thing. When a man feels like he has the space to come to you in his own time, he'll start doing it more often. He'll realize he doesn't have to guard every word because you're not going to pounce on him the second he shows emotion. That's when you start seeing real honesty, the kind that comes from a place of trust instead of pressure. So yes, timing belongs to him, But your role is knowing how to keep the door open, give the right prompt, and make him feel like he can walk through it without fear. Because when you respect his pace, you're not just getting him to talk, you're building the kind of trust that makes him want to. When a man finally starts talking about how he feels, that moment is delicate. You might not realize it, but for him, that's a risk. He's stepping out of his comfort zone, putting something real on the table and waiting to see what you do with it. That's why positive reinforcement is so important. The way you respond in that moment can either make him feel safe enough to keep sharing or make him shut that door and lock it for a long time. See, a lot of men don't grow up getting rewarded for being vulnerable. Most of us get the opposite, teased, judged, told to man up. So when we do open up, we're halfway expecting a negative reaction. We're waiting for that laugh, that eye roll, that change of tone that says, you shouldn't have said that. That's why when the reaction is good, when it's warm, understanding, and encouraging, it catches us off guard in the best way possible. Positive reinforcement doesn't mean you have to throw a big celebration every time he shares something. It's about making sure your reaction tells him, I hear you, I appreciate you, and I respect what you just did. That could be as simple as saying, thanks for telling me that, or I'm glad you shared that with me. It could be showing understanding in your tone and body language. Sometimes it's not even about words. It's about giving him that calm, accepting energy that lets him know he didn't just make a mistake by opening up. The big thing here is to avoid using what he says against him later. That's one of the fastest ways to kill trust. If a man tells you something personal and you pull it out during an argument as ammunition, that's it. He'll never give you that kind of honesty again. Positive reinforcement works because it builds trust, and trust only grows when he believes his feelings are safe with you, no matter what. It's also about recognizing the effort, not just the content. Maybe he didn't give you the big emotional confession you were hoping for, but if it's more than he said before, that's progress. Celebrate that progress. If you make him feel like every little step is worth taking, he'll be more willing to take the next one. But if you dismiss it because it's not enough, you risk making him feel like he's wasting his time. Another part of positive reinforcement is showing him how his honesty affects you in a good way. If he tells you something and you can express how much it helps you understand him better, that motivates him to do it again. Men like to feel like their actions have value. If his sharing brings you closer, tell him that. If it makes you feel more connected, let him know. That way he starts to link opening up with a positive outcome, not a negative one. You also have to be patient with the process. Positive reinforcement works over time. The more times a man has a good experience with opening up to you, the more he'll trust it. At first, he might test you with small things just to see how you react. But if every reaction is steady, supportive, and respectful, those small things turn into bigger truth. And don't underestimate the power of gratitude. Saying thank you when he shares something real might seem simple, but it's powerful. It tells him you don't take his trust for granted. A man who feels appreciated for his honesty is a man who will keep being honest. So when he gives you a piece of himself, treat it like it's worth something, because it is. Every time you respond with positivity, you're not just reacting to that one moment, you're shaping the way he sees future moments. You're teaching him that with you telling the truth about his feelings isn't a risk, it's a win. One of the biggest reasons men keep their feelings locked up is because somewhere along the way, we were taught that showing emotion makes us weak. From the time we were boys, we heard things like man up, don't cry, tough it out. That message gets drilled into us so deep that by the time we're grown, we believe vulnerability is the opposite of strength. And that's why even when we feel something deeply, we hesitate to let anybody see it. If you want a man to tell you how he really feels, you got to flip that script for him.